Welcome back to the channel. My name's Brad Supercoach Pro. Take bloody two. Tell you what, TPG, go fuck yourself. I literally had to reset my internet. I couldn't hear what Damo was saying. He could hear me. You guys could hear me. I was hearing like every fourth or fifth word from that live stream then. I honestly cannot stand internet. The amount of streams I've done, solo, it's been fine, etc. Even when I'm doing like a Zoom Supercoach review, preview, whatever, I've done like over 200 videos. And this is like the third time in about 3 months the internet decided to cook itself. So let's see if we can get him on board. All right. Please tell me this works this time.
Yep, I'm all good. Have you got me loud and clear?
I definitely have this time. I reset that fucking internet, mate.
Good stuff. How good's technology?
Oh, mate,
Oh no,
I don't know if you could hear it off my head before, but
I could. You're actually coming through super smooth on my end, so I was like, I'm here. I'm here.
yeah, oh, mate, it was like talking to Stevie Wonder.
Just completely blind, and you weren't even drinking. You got water in that stein.
I know. I got this in Adelaide last year. Have you ever been to Handoff? Whatever it's called, Handoff?
No, I haven't. No.
Mate, beautiful place. Go check it out if you're ever in Adelaide.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'd definitely.
Were you there for Gather Round?
No, I actually didn't go there for that. I went to took my little one to Adelaide Zoo and stuff when he was like 7 months.
That's cool.
Yeah. Have you been to Gather Round?
Awesome. I'll have to check it out. No, I haven't been. We're considering it this year, but we'd already booked like a trip to Bali, which is coming up actually in 10 days. So we're like, we've already got like that trip on the agenda. And last year, like we had our massive trip, the wife and I, of course, our honeymoon to the US. So that kind of tied up a bit of finances. So we're like, we'll maybe go to Gather Round maybe next year. But yeah, have you been?
Nah, never
for Gather Round?
No, never.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe next year, But I've been to Adelaide before already, like through my work with when I was working at the Pies. I actually like Adelaide. I don't mind it. It cops a fair bit of stick, but it's so easy to get around. Like it's such a I basically probably liken it to Geelong in a way. Like it's so easy to get around. It's a bit smaller compared to, in terms of a major city. Obviously smaller compared to Melbourne, and it was pretty good. I liked it.
I went to two. I stayed inside like the city of Adelaide. It just felt like a bigger Geelong, like you said. Funnily enough.
Yeah, no, it was really good. I enjoyed it.
It's like it's not the hustle and bustle of Melbourne either.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's not as crazy. It's good. It's like, yeah, it feels to me like it's a sort of a bit of a country town with a bit of metropolitan sort of thrown into it. But no, it's good. Adelaide Oval's good oval as well.
I haven't been to that either. I was going to say, what did you score on Supercoach this week?
So I've just had a look, and I've been paying like zero attention to it. I think it's kind of like I've hit the mark where it's kind of been going towards it like week on week the past maybe couple of weeks, where even though I've got one trade up my sleeve, I'm just kind of like, like I'm kind of just over Supercoach at the moment. It probably doesn't help that my team, like in general, Carlton are performing like shit. So I'm like, my motivation for footy at the moment is just kind of like hit a bit of a wall. But ended up scoring 2,395. So not too good considering that I faded Bont and ended up going for Flanders and Shees. So I ended up putting the VC on Flanders and then put the captaincy on Sheasel. So I knew that Graham was going to tag Sheasel, but I just backed in Sheasel and I was like, yeah, stuff it. Like I wanted to have a bit of a play with the VC and the C this week. Paid off last week with Sheasel as the VC. Got the 160. And I know with Bont, I was like, I know he's got a good matchup with the Ds. They won't be able to tag him, but I thought maybe he might be able to score around about at 120. But I thought Shees might be able to capitalize, especially Flanders as well. Like I was kind of relying upon him. Hasn't scored below a ton all season. Then of course the one round that I put the VC on him, he scores a 91. So that's just a classic way of Supercoach, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I couldn't even tell you the last time apart from the week we got a huge score. I don't know if I've had really shit scores for the captaincies and VCs.
So you
this
jumped on Bont,
week.
I saw as well.
I
So
did. Last minute, I was looking at my Supercoach preview, right, and I'm like, hang on, I'm gonna look at Bont's scores a little bit more. And I was like, fuck, this is too much for me. He's played really good opponents the last 4 weeks and still managed like a 110. And then I just thought Flanders didn't have the ceiling when I had a look at his ceiling apart from that 140 he dropped the week before, and I thought, nah, Bont's 620k for a reason. Let's take a punt. And Sheasel was my fallback guy, but Jack Graham was named, so I was like, oh, maybe if Bont doesn't go well, I'll go Cherry.
yep.
But I was right this week, so it was nice to get something right. And I reckon I'll move up. I'm trying to catch Steve. I don't know if you've seen my preview in my video, but I'm trying to. That's my goal. I don't know if he knows that yet, but my goal is literally to catch Steve from SCE.
He will now if he tunes in.
That's right. I even said to him, I said, "You'll like the video." I think I'm like 2 or 3 points away from him after this week. I think I won't really score, but I think I'm only not far from him. So hopefully I can edge him off.
Edge him off. Hopefully you can as well. So whereabouts, like, how far in rank are you apart? Do you know?
I think we're like 2 or 3,000, but it's only 70 points difference.
Oh, really?
So,
Jeez, that shows like how close it is.
Literally,
70 points,
so
like separating a couple of thousand.
Yeah, it actually is because when I had a look at it, I need 70 points to close in. I only beat him by 60 something, so I won't be far from maybe, I don't know. I'm currently like 8,700, so I should be in like that 7,000 or 600 mark, 7,000 mark. Sorry. What are you ranked at the moment?
I am ranked just outside the top 3,081st.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. That was the other reason why I put I was kind of like going Flanders into Sheasel. That's right. Because I was trying to think of my methodology. And I know that Flanders hasn't really had a high ceiling, as you said. He's had obviously a high floor. But West Coast had conceded the second most points to inside mids. So I was like,
oh wow,
yeah, they're not going to take Flanders. And I just took a punt. And I was like, I just want to go a little bit different. But the main thing is, like, I think at this stage, like the overall rank, I'm like, man, I couldn't give a shit. But I'm just like playing for cash leagues now. So the main thing is I've won the main cash league that I'm in. I ended up winning miraculously. So I was like, thank God. So I finished second, and actually no, first. Sorry, in this league. Ended up going through. So now I'm going through to the prelims. So at least you got that up my sleeve. And it's like the top prize is like, I think it's like over $1,000 if you win. So I was like, fuck it, might as well just play for the cash.
Yeah, I would too. Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah. So not too phased, but overall.
Nah, especially when you got cash leagues. I've got nothing to play for bar my reputation on Supercoach YouTube, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's literally all. Like, I'm playing public league. There's a couple of leagues that me and Steve did together, but I think I've been, like, just in terms of ladder position for any of it, be enticing. If that makes sense. Like, I'm in the minor leagues. You know, the finals and you're playing for the minor prize. It's like, what the fuck?
Oh,
it's like 16.
Bottom 8.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah,
pretty much those. So I'm like, that's what happens when you got a team outside that top 8,000. Is like you're not even in the top 8 anyway, generally speaking.
Yeah, exactly right.
So,
and like the one thing is I find frustrating as well. I don't know if this happens with you with some of your leagues, but so I run every year. I've done it for maybe the past 6-7 years, a cash league that I've organized. And I used to do like 2 tiers. It was like first tier was like $100 entry. The other one was like $50. And then it got to the stage where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to combine both into like the one league. So it's like 150 is the entry, and like cash prizes are pretty stacked. And this season I was ranked I think it was the 3rd or 4th highest scorer of the league. Ended up finishing last week. I had to, obviously it was the last home and away game for Supercoach. Played the guy who was in 16th spot. I was in 10th. Needed to win in order to make the 8. He ended up scoring. I scored the 3rd most points for the round. He ended up scoring the 2nd most points for the round and pipped me. And I was like, fuck. It was like every week, like I just come up against someone that they don't have like a I don't know, for example, like a really highly owned player, like a Butters, for example, and then Butters gets tagged, has a down game, then they have like a pod that just goes off and just beats me, and I'm like, fuck, like it happened like every second week, I reckon, and should have like finished inside the top 8 easily. Top 4 might have been pushing, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
frustrating those things.
Like I can see in my leagues now, I'm just having like a little squeeze. In this is my ranks, right, for these leagues: 9th, 10th, third, sixth, third, fourth. Oh, they're not as bad as I thought. But the
Yeah,
first
it's pretty
couple,
not too
maybe.
bad.
Supercoach DR in his on 13th. I'm fucked in that. The professionals, like, where there's the guys at the absolute gun, 9th in that. All the ones that have like channels and shit, just getting absolutely wiped with because they're all in the top 5K easily. But there's only
Yeah.
like out of 10, I'm only in maybe 4 top 8s.
Oh wow.
So like,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to play now for the last round.
it's such a coin flip. That's a thing, like with head to heads and stuff. And it doesn't help as well. Like if the leagues play buys, like depending on your buy strategy, like every team is a different makeup. So like you may be throwing a game in a round, like a buy round that someone else excels in, and then vice versa. Or you might
Yeah,
match up against like the teams that you face every single buy round. Like they could have 1 or 2 players extra or whatever, or a couple of extra primos compared to your rookies that you're playing in place of primos that you're missing, and it just throws things out. But I've been carrying Rankin for the past 4 weeks and finally get him back next week. So I'm like far out. Just looking forward to that. Especially considering
needy.
like I have to rely on Charlie Kerno, who isn't going well.
Well, he scored 33 and Jacko scored 48.
Oh, both of those guys. That was part of the reason why I got Rankin in. Because I just wanted to loop those guys depending on like who plays first. Because key forwards, it's just so shit. You can't rely upon them.
Yeah.
And especially when a team's in a bit of a
Nah,
downturn in form. Yeah, so we'll see how we go. But
that's right.
thankful to get Rankin back.
Yeah, that was actually if Kerno, like if you guys are doing well, Kerno's doing well. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly right. Yeah.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, massive
But
correlation between that. And it's the same with other forwards as well.
that's right. Corey says scored a 2.540 and still lost my main league by 17. Fuck.
Oh,
Kerno 30,
that
Evans 40
kills.
on the field. Who's Evans?
I think he's the dude from Port. Is that right? Logan Evans or
Oh,
Francis Evans, one of the 2 dudes. I think it's Logan. I think
maybe it's just
Logan
DC.
Evans. Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be it. Because I'm like, who rolled your friends? That makes more sense. Jack, legend,
yeah.
how are we? It's my man up the Lions. What's going on, Jack?
Oh, g'day, Jack. He's a great man, Jack. He's a
You're
big supporter of
sending
our
me on
channel as well. He
Messenger.
gets around.
Yeah, he's a good lad.
He's based in Norway, I think, from memory, with his
Yeah,
partner. Good fella. So
yeah,
time difference, but he still always finds the time to jump on.
yeah, no. 2502. Won both cash leagues. There you go, cash league man. Puts me straight through the
Oh,
semis in the
nice.
main one and just snagged results. Second cash. I was very happy. He tried the VC on bot thanks to Brad. Yeah, he asked me game. He's like, or whenever it was that night, he goes, "Who you got your VC on?" I said, "Oh, Bont, mate." I said, "I'm at work," so I was a little bit blunt without meaning to. I was just like in the middle where my, so I couldn't text him. I was just like, "Fuck, just VC Bont. It's okay."
At least it
Fucking,
worked.
yeah, literally. Can you imagine if it was like a 5? He'd be like, "Fuck." Curno and Holmes. Who's on the shit since Stewart's midfield role? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one with Holmes because I thought it would have been the opposite, where like out of the defense, it frees up Holmes to do his best work because he's kind of I don't know. It's been the opposite effect when Stewart was back there with Holmes. Holmes is killing it, but yeah, you're right. Like as soon as he's gone out, I don't know if they put more attention into Holmes, like opposition teams or something. I don't know, but very strange.
Maybe Humphreys might be scoring off Holmes as well, potentially as well, because he's in the back line, isn't he?
Yeah, that's true.
John.
Yep. Yeah, he has. Yeah, yep.
So one of Scott Carroll, you know.
And how's about the cow,
And
Manny
he's got.
Rao?
Oh, yeah, didn't he score like a 120 this week?
He killed it. He's back. He's back, baby.
I couldn't believe it. I can't believe that man actually eats grass. I think
How crazy is
it's
it?
wild. Uh, Corey. So I got a time delay in my fucking internet again. It says in my league I
Yeah,
made
you, you,
the top.
you're pixelating.
Am I shit? Top six rather than top eight. Fourth and would have been the guy first. We had to play fifth as I made it six. I don't. Have you ever done those leagues? I've never done one of those.
Made it. Oh, I got you. Yeah, yeah. So top six go through to the finals. Um, we've got a Supercoach Edge. It's a draft league, like a draft keeper league,
Yeah.
and we had to do a top six because it was due to the number of teams. I think we've got like 12 teams, so we had
Oh,
to
okay.
make it like top six instead of a top eight. But yeah,
Yeah.
it means that like the season finishes round 23, I think it is. That's like the grand final week instead of round
Oh,
24.
yeah. I didn't get to play a draft this year. No one invited me to a draft, so I didn't
Oh
get to.
shit. I should have. I was like, I was racking my brain. I was like, I don't know who would be keen, and ended up putting. I think it was in Supercoach with DR. I think in one of his chats,
Yeah.
and people snapped it up, and I was like, oh no, there are a couple of people that kind of just lost their way, and like I think they've just don't really have any interest in it because there was the whole kerfuffle around like trading and everything, and there was a couple of people being like, "Oh, this isn't fair" type thing, and then like the power struggle, and I was like, everyone knew what was happening. Like, I just gave everyone ownership. Like, you trade who you want. It comes down to you, like assessing trades, as well as the other person who's involved with the trade, and ended up having to. Now I'm like the overseer of trades, so people like send through, and like I just said to people, I'm like, unless it's something ridiculous like a bond for a bloody rookie or something, like I'm gonna approve it. Like it's up to you guys to assess what's reasonable. But yeah, it was I think you saved yourself anyway. Long story short, a bit of kerfuffle. So, but I might try and set up a new one potentially down the line. So see how we go.
I like drafts because like then I look at pods for next year and players that like could break out. That's what I love about draft. Is this year you've got no aspects. I've only been looking at rookies and primos. I haven't really looked into the breakout candidates. Whereas draft allow you to do that.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's like this is like a keeper league, so it like carries across multiple seasons. So you've got to like delist four players. You got like a team of 20. Oh, sorry, a team of what was it? Team of 24, I think it is. And then you've got to delist four, and then we actually have a draft, like pre-season draft. And then like draft guys, and depending on where you finish in the season, you get like the number one pick, second pick, third pick, and
Okay.
then yeah, it's good. Like it's a long term thing, so it's like yeah, invest in the youngsters, but like depends what strategy you want to go for. Some teams ended up trying to go for like stacking their team with like superstars and like older guys who might retire at the end of this year, and then they'll just drop away and they'll have to like redraft all these youngsters. So it's like it's good fun, but bit of something to it.
Yeah, it would be, especially when you're doing a league that keeps consisting of the season after. It'd be a longer term strategy than just a short turnaround, wouldn't it? Of
Yeah,
yeah,
it's spot on.
but that's what I liked about the waiver picks. Like as soon as the waiver wire was open, I just try to get the player that had an out of the box game that could potentially keep going like this, like your Pete Wings and shit
Yeah,
like that. Just
exactly. Yeah.
So I used to love draft just for that sort of thing. Bills went huge this week. Scored 2,574. Kerno hurt a lot, 33. I feel like that's going to be pretty common in a lot of teams, isn't it? Kerno was huge.
Yeah.
On his cash
Oh, you want
league.
his cashy?
What is par this week? I don't know. What do you think? I'm thinking two 450 is par, I reckon.
I reckon, yeah, around about that mark, I reckon. Um, pretty spot on. I reckon, yeah, 2450 is probably the minimum. So I'm
Yeah.
expecting to drop probably 1,000, 1,500 spots, but as I said, couldn't give a shit.
Yeah. I think, like I said, the only reason I give a shit is because I want to make the top 5K just purely for a channel perspective, and that's literally it. Like,
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
just trying to save
It's
myself. Fuck.
how's your season gone as well, by the way? Because I was looking at it, I think it was last week I was doing my because every week I have the team talk videos where I analyze like how my team's gone and everything else. I was actually like I started the season better than last year.
Yep.
First week I was 29,000.
Yep.
Whereas last year I was like something like 50,000. Second week I went down to 9,000, then 4,000, 2,000, and then I stagnated a couple of weeks, went back to 4,000, then back to 2,000, back like round 10, went down to 1,500 round 12, and then I've been falling away ever since then. But like
Yeah.
I ended up upgrading my team. like a week ahead of most people, I reckon, because I just use boosts. And I was like, oh, this is going to hold me in good stead, like keep me at a spot where I'm ahead of the pack and just keep going. But it just like stagnated. So frustrating because it was like a change up in strategy compared to last year where I kind of held the boosts. Whereas
Yeah.
this year I was like, got to use them to get ahead of the pack, and it worked well. But I don't know, I think there's maybe a couple of injuries and yeah, trading in guys that were pus like Steel and whatnot and just didn't go well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think last year I started off 100,000 in round one. And then I had to claw my way all the way back. It was like 80,000, 70,000. Then I got from 100,000 in round one all the way to about 6,000 last year. The year
yeah,
before
wow.
that, I had like a really good start. I was in like the top, I reckon 10K. And then I just finished 1,100 in 2 years ago, just outside the top
Yep.
1,000. And then this year, I had a good start, but just never got anywhere. And I don't know, I think I can't really. I haven't got the answers to why I haven't really like got any progress. The only time I've got progress is probably the last 3 weeks of football, and that's just from nailing my VCs. It hasn't been from anything else I can think of. My trades have been fairly good. I think there's just so many other good teams out there that they've been just smashing me because they've got the good players earlier. Like the people that jump on Yo started with Yo. The people that took
Oh
risks
yeah.
with all
Yeah,
those players.
McGovern.
Yeah, the players you shouldn't have gone for. They're the ones that hurt
Yeah.
me. It's the Nick Martins at the start of the season that you should have probably maybe kept and not wasted it. Hayden Young trade out. Um,
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
you know, just wasting trades and bringing people back in all the time and bringing in Fisher back in. Like, what the fuck was that about?
Yeah. Oh, it's just it's hard as well. I reckon there's a whole heap of players that like have had a bad downturn in form. I remember like just having a look back at my trades now, and I remember I was weighing up between going for Jordan Dawson or going for Walsh. Ended up
Yeah,
backing in Walsh. I was like, surely he's going to hit his straps when he hits his peak fitness, like he did like in the finals last year. So that's kind of been a bit of a maybe a slight gain because I know Dawson's dropped off. He's had a few injuries and whatnot as well, concussions. But like even then, like both picks as it turned out have been pretty ordinary. So it's guys
yeah,
like that where I probably should have gone and looked elsewhere.
yeah,
But I reckon the big takeaway I reckon for me this year, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, but I think next year going forward, I've chosen guys that have been like peak players, but they've attracted the tag. So Walsh has been attracting tags like every single week, and he's been injured as well, which hasn't helped. But I think next year I'm going to try and target guys like Dunkley, who never gets tagged behind Neil. Strange that Neil hasn't really been tagged all season either, which is a different story. But there's guys like Brayshaw behind Sarong. Sarong attracts the tag every week, um, so on and so forth. So I reckon that's kind of a new part of the strategy that I might try and work into next year.
yeah,
Because a lot of people naturally will go for those big name players because they're the highest scorers, but it's kind of a bit of an unknown as to whether or not week after week they're going to get a tag. Like Butters, like Rosie gets free most of the time. Butters can still score well, but attracts the tag. So I might try and look into that a bit closer next year. It's funny, like every year, I reckon there's something there's like a key takeaway. And I've been playing Supercoach since like back at early days of high school, like back in 2004 it would have been. So that shows my age. But yeah, like every year, there's like a new thing that I'm picking up. And like when they brought in the boosts and stuff early on, as I said, I was very conservative. Didn't work because it turns out those teams that scored well and got a bit of a leg up were those ones that were using boosts early. So did that last year. Ended up finishing, even though I started shit, I'm just having a look now. The first round, I was ranked 75,000 and somehow clawed my way back to finish not 981st overall, just inside the top 1K. So yeah, I reckon you're totally right though. I reckon this year, even though I had the same strategy as last year, used the boosts early, thought I was getting a leg up. I reckon those people that started those risks like Yo, McGovern, Fife as well early on, he was going okay. Um, these guys that I'd never touch because I know they're going to break down it, and normally they would, I reckon. Like I know that Skodfather's been copping a fair bit of injuries and stuff, but he, to his credit, and I mean it's out of his hands, but he's been getting a whole heap of good luck, and
yeah,
he got his whole heap of bad luck at the one time with Philippou, who you can't really that's one of those things. But McGovern finally got injured. Yo's been injured. All those sort of things. So it's just it's I think it's just bad luck or good luck. It's just stuff that they're out of your hands and you can't really do much about, can you?
I think that's the one thing I'm taking away from next year is I'm probably going to start off a lot more risk. I don't care if my team's got 6 risky players. They're the teams that had a really good start. Like you look at those teams like Abs has
Mm.
had, he's got such a huge lead, even though he's had a lot of players that have been out and top donuts. He still maintained that top 1,000 rank just because he had such a huge leg up, paid 480,000 for a player that's averaging 110, saving that money, upgrading the team early, banking all those freaking points, and then no one can catch you because you're so far ahead of all the risk. I used the same strategy this year. Is I did the same as you, Damo, where I just used all the boosts, upgraded my team a week early. But I think I just traded out too many sideways primos for players that, apart from bringing in Sarong and Butters round 2, I haven't done anything
Mm.
significant. I jumped the pack. Like I started Bond. I started too many expensive players, and then I also bought in Gorn for almost 700k. So I spent up on too many
Oh,
players.
yeah.
I spent up on a guy that already put all the points on, and then after that, he did fuck all in comparison to
Yeah.
what he started the season. Um,
Yeah.
the thing that's worked in my favor in the last 5 weeks is my DPP flexibility. Like my coverage is unreal. I don't know if you've seen my side recently, but even if I've got 22 playing, I've got enough DPP to cover each one, no matter what.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
And that's the other thing as well that I've been thinking about is like those DPP players. Like we know how valuable they are, but like more so at the back end of this year as well. Like with injuries and stuff, it means that you don't have to use a trade because you've already got guys that can transfer across to a different line and cover those injured players.
yeah,
Um, like Jackson definitely helped me. I think when Gorn, so I ended up holding Gorn.
same.
Um, so it was like having even Kruger as well, even though he wasn't ideal coverage, but still helped out with DPP. And it meant that, the trade that I've still got left in the bank, I probably would have had to have used. But then I'm thinking back and I'm like, should I have used it? Like I would have probably gone for Cherry, who's been going like great guns and would have helped me out, I think, in terms of overall rank. But again, I've kind of realigned my outlook now to be looking at cash leagues as opposed to overall. So if I was going for overall, I most definitely would have used that last trade. But because now I'm in cash leagues, I'm like, yeah, is what it is. But like looking over my trade history, there aren't really guys that maybe Wangani Miller. I got on him in round 3. I've held him all the way through. Hasn't been someone with like a high ceiling. Has had like an okay relative floor. But like the early upgrades, Flanders I brought in, which was good. I probably should have started him, which I was going to, but it was like start Flanders and miss out on who was it? It was someone in defense, or it might have been a Bont or something. And I'm like, it's a non-negotiable. I have to start Bont.
Yep.
Um, oh, that's what it was. Sorry, it was between Flanders or Dacos, Nick Dacos.
Yep.
And I was like, do I fade Dacos, who I was confident was going to have a slow start, but I didn't
Yep.
want to be like falling behind the pack because he's going to be so highly owned. I was like, if I forego Dacos, that's a massive risk because it means I'm going to have to try and find the cash to bring him in, which is cash that I would have otherwise used on Flanders. So I was like, oh, I'll hedge my bets and just hopefully, go for Flanders after he has that, round 0 game or whatnot. And comes out of the blocks, and I thought he might have had a relative slow start. And I was not not worried about Flanders, but I thought if he has a slow start, that might help me. And if Dacos has a good start, but yeah, sliding doors. I think round 0 just like spooked me a bit as well, strategy wise. I don't know about you, how you set up your team, but did you factor that in?
I factored in too much. I think I didn't probably pick players that I probably should have just based on one round. And I think that's what also screwed me over. Is I should have just went with my gut,
Yeah.
picked some players that are not worried about the round 0 in a whole. And probably just anti-potting stupid things like Gorn with no Grundy didn't make sense to anti-pot him. I went Marshall instead, and then Marshall just did bugger all, and then I paid too much for him, as I said. But
Yeah.
all those C's I missed out on all those 180s and 150s that is dropping. That's where I really lost my rank, and it wasn't so much um, my trades per se when I look at it as a whole. It's more who I didn't bring in before they
Mm.
skyrocket, and then I bring them in for too expensive. Like people did with Rao, they paid like 620 for him. Merritt, they paid 620, 640. I
Yeah.
did the same with a few players, and then it hinders your cash gen for 2 or 3 upgrades, and then you got to go cheap, and then that cheap play does shit, so it affects your whole team as
Mm.
the weeks go on. So It's a hard one because, like we say, oh, let's learn what mistakes we did, but then we do it next year anyway. Half the time, the same
Yeah,
ones.
exactly right. I think the only thing different that I did this year compared to last year was, and it was like the key takeaway from last year is, and it was down to that point that you just made where like I was running out of cash early, so I had to sort of settle for someone who's kind of like second or third tier behind like the best of the best. And this year I was like, you know what? I don't care. Like if it means that I have to use boosts on getting in those really good cash cows, I was going
Yeah,
to do it. So early on, I ended up using boosts to get in D'Ambrosio. Ended up bringing in Sharp from Frio. Brought in Dempsey. Like this was like back to back to back weeks. Made sure that I got these guys in, and then I thought, okay, well, it's going to keep me in good stead in terms of cash generation, and it did because my team value like skyrocketed. So I thought I was going to be in a relatively good space, but again, like looking at the upgrades, I brought in Steele, who
yeah,
went to shit. Ended up bringing in Sarong, who had dropped in price and actually was pretty good. He was at 630. A
yeah,
lot of people jumped on him early days, and he was actually more expensive than that. Then I brought in Walsh, which was a bad get. Merritt I brought in virtually top price, as you said, 640.
yeah.
Um, then I brought in Luke Ryan, top price again, well,
Oh, so did
thereabouts, 644.
I did the same.
So I don't know if you listen to many other podcasts, but like the Doctor Supercoach boys, their most recent episode, I tuned in on the ride home the other night, and they made a really good point, which I'd never really thought about, and something I'll probably be conscious of next year. Using Flanders as an example, if you have a look at his breakdown in scores, so obviously we know that he hasn't dropped below 100 all season prior to the weekend, of course. But
Yep,
if you have a look at his price point, I'll just go through and just give you an example. So he started pretty cheap, 494.2k, was averaging 119 up until round 16. So he's going up week on week, but incrementally like 10k, 3k, 12k, 8k, despite scoring around about, as I said, he was averaging 120, but around about 100 to 115.
yep,
And then he actually had a score of 104 back in round 17, dropped 16.3k. Round 18, he had another just above 100 score of 106, dropped another 17k. And then after a 128 round 19, he went down 8k. So over a 3 week period, despite scoring 104, 106, 128, he actually dropped 43k over 3 weeks.
wow.
So
Yeah,
like it just shows, despite the fact that he was still scoring well, because he was
yeah,
scoring his combined average over those 3 weeks below his season average, he was
yeah,
dropping in price. So, and the same things happened with like those high price guys, like, Ryan, as we know, but his form dropped away massively. But there was a little window there where, even though he's scoring quite well, he only had like, a couple of, oh, we had one bad week. So, as an example here,
yeah,
he was priced at 653 in
yeah,
round five. Round six, he scored an 89, was his first score below 100.
yeah.
Went down at 12.9k. Then round seven, scored a 106, went down 12k again. So over those 2 weeks, he went down 24k. So it's just a lot about timing, but I think it just goes to show, like they were chatting about on Dr. Supercoach, that I think if you're priced above 640, you're bound to drop in price at some point, and all it takes is just one game that's just a little bit below par and below their season average that you can pounce and jump on them. Where I think I was a little bit hasty in trying to get him in early, and then his form dropped away, which you can't control. But um, yeah, it just shows that if you can, for me going forward next year, I'm not going to pay. I'm going to say above 620. If they hit 600, I'll get them. Anything above that, I'm going to be like, nut, stuff it. I don't care. Like, they're going to drop at some point. But it's the risk you take because a lot of people would have brought them in already. And all you're doing is just having to wait for them to have a relatively down game. But it's like, when will it come?
Yeah.
It comes down to luck, doesn't it?
You gotta have the right money and the right timing to do it in case you get an injury as well. So it's really hard to do that timing. But
Mm.
I was looking at my rank just before, as we were mentioning. I've got a really weird ranking this year, and this is why I can't sort of get a hold of what I've done in terms of my side, because this year started off 35,000. I'll do this as quick as I can. 25,000, 30,000, 17,000, 6,000, 7,000, 17,000, 13,000, 14,000, 8,000, 7,000, 5,000, 8,000, 11,000. Just like pittering at the same fucking numbers.
Oh, wow. So you're just like going back and forth type thing.
Yeah, I'm mostly just going one up, one down. So I'm going 11, 9, 10. 11, 12, 10, 8. Like,
Jeez.
I haven't gone over 35, but I'm sticking between 17 and 8. So I've got nothing to tell the viewers what I'm doing every week. It's just literally a VC or a
Yeah.
player that scored 30 that someone's got a player that scored 90 that week. And that's why I'm so close to Steve's score. Like, he was, like, he wasn't, it was outscoring me by, like, 40, 50 points here. And I'm like, shit, he's got a really good rank here. And I'm like, I'm not that far behind, but in terms of rankings, like, I'm like sitting at 11,000, but he's at like 4,000 or 5,000, but there's only 200 points in total between it. And I'm looking at my trades, and it's purely just a VC shit. And then I'm like, why am I not doing so well? And then why am I? And it's only because the last 2 or 3 weeks I've nailed my VC and then my rankings came back in. And so I can't really, it's a hard year to gauge. Whereas I look at the overall team, do it for the year before, just as quick as I can. Round 23 last year, started 100,000, as I said, and finished, oh, sorry, my bad. I thought it was 6,000. Finished 8,000 from 100,000 start. No, sorry, 100,000.
wow.
100. No, sorry, it was 100,000 start, and I came into 6,000, and that was the worst. And then the year before, and it's all about your starting position. The year before, I started 24,000 and finished 1,200. So it really,
Yeah.
I never got outside the top 5,000 after round 11 from 2 years ago. Like, it's almost just that starting side. If you don't get your starting side right, you kind of fuck for the whole season.
How did you go in terms of, I don't know if you have access to your trade history, but like, I know, just speaking firstly as well to your point about like the VC and the C, like last week was, and this is the thing for me, I'm like, I don't think it comes down to the VC and the C, because last week we got Sheasel of 160, but I don't know if that was potentially offset by the fact that I don't own Cherry, where he went massive. A lot of people had the VC on him as an alternative, so I didn't really get any, I guess, advantage by putting the VC and locking that in on Sheasel. But like last week I dropped, I think it was like 30 spots or something ridiculous. It was minute, but it was a week that I thought after locking in Sheasel, I was like, surely with the rest of my team going half decent, I'll gain some rank, but never did. But weeks prior to that, I know I think maybe about 3 weeks running, I had like Sarong, he got tagged. I think it was against your mob, against the Tigs. Then I had Merritt, who ended up scoring at 80 something. Then I can't remember who else was the player, but it was like 3 or 4 weeks running where I was just like having shit VC and Cs. Yeah. And it was just doing my head in. And then last week I was like, thank God. And then didn't get any coverage. But yeah, like, I don't know, just going back to that trade chat and like having the perfect starting team, were there, because I imagine probably would have started Young and Martin, is that right? Or one of those guys?
History, I'm having a look now. Field. How do you check on your app? What do you do on there? Give me a sec.
So if you, let me have a squeeze.
Wow.
So I think it's like click on a history.
On your app?
Yeah. Actually,
no,
I don't think it's in.
It's a trade. It's in trade history. So you go into history, then you go all the way down to that arrow that goes arrow up. The arrow in the middle.
Oh, there you go. Classic. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, and it says trade history. My trade history is actually fucking wild, to be honest. It's pretty funny. It's like, I just need to post it on a. It's actually not bad, but I traded out Martin round 2, Martin, Fisher, and Gibcus for Billings, Massimo, and Steele. Then I'll try to do this really quick, right? Round 3, Young, Grundy, Wines out for Butters, Williams, and Sarong.
Yep, that's actually not too bad. Butters and Sarong are a good gets.
In round 3. And then round 4.
And Williams would have made you cash.
Yeah, he made me plenty. Billings, Berry, and Sexton out. For Sam Darcy, Powell, Tom Powell, that is. I jumped on that train. I shouldn't have jumped on that one. And Dempsey.
Just quickly on Powell, would you believe? So Liam unfortunately can't join us tonight. He's tied up. I should have said that from the outset, but he's actually still got Powell in his team, believe it or not. And Powell's now like turned it around because he's playing more defensive and getting more of the pill. So it's like it's so frustrating because he was at a point where he was like, stuff it. I'm losing
Yeah,
motivation. I'm just going to leave guys on my team. And I think he's got a couple of trades up his sleeve. But yeah, pal, he's turned it around.
he has. I think the one I won't go through all the trades, but Meek was one I jumped on that everyone was like, "Oh no, Meek's a fucking dart." And I looked at his highlights on that, and he went nuts. Made cash off that R3 line. So next year I'll probably do the same in R3. Is I'll make sure I've got R3 swings so I can make cash off Meek. And then I grabbed Combin. People weren't seeing the Combin factor. He went nuts. He made me children something K. I
Yep,
jumped on all the rookies before their price rise bar Dempsey. So I bought in the wrong Garcia. I bought in Rogers, who I should have went somebody else that week. I bought in Sweet at the R3 position. Bruce Revel, Richardson Fraser,
yep.
Moyle again at the R3
Yeah,
spot.
Moyle. Yeah, I did the
Uh,
same.
so my tradings were good, generally speaking. It was more the outs. Like I outed the rookies at the right price. Like I cashed out Sharp. I started him over that Carlton bloke. So I cashed him out, the rookies at the right price. But I just didn't bring in my primos at the right price, like we were talking about before.
Yeah, yeah. I'm exactly the same. Like I, I don't know. I reckon I got the right rookies in and like I cashed them out at the right time. But I I just think it was those like having faith in English because who I thought was like supreme value,
Yeah,
and he dropped down to what was it? I ended up getting him in round 13, and he was like 563.
yeah,
And even though like his scoring ceiling wasn't the best, I was like his floor is actually pretty good. And I thought there was upside there that he was actually going to come back to being scoring well, and he's just been so shit all year. And he's obviously just doesn't want to play at the Dogs, and it's already potentially signed at West Coast, and you see dollar signs, so got his mind elsewhere. But it's stuff like that. I'm just like I could have easily have kept Grundy as well, who I wanted to back in,
yeah,
but I kind of followed the crowd in that case, and I was like I shouldn't have. I should have held out a bit more faith in Grundy because it's burnt me in the past where I've followed the crowd, even though I wanted to hold onto a player. And I was just worried about, again, falling behind and holding onto a player for too long who may not have busted out good scores. But I think with Ruckman, they're an exception to the rule where it's like they score so easily in Supercoach where you can kind of take that risk
yeah.
compared to other players in other positions. So I don't know. It's oh, here
Well,
we go. So Cam said Cam Tinley in the chat. He said round 21 results are out, so we can have a look at
oh,
updated scores.
true. I should probably go through those comments quickly if I can, but
Yeah, have a look through.
there's a fair bit as you go through your side. Corey says, as traded Green to Sinclair this week, and Green kicked the goal that cost me the win. As Sinclair, Marshall versus Neil and Nas to finish the round, though, I was coming home strong. We are well, Jamar, the stats man. We're going well, mate. Jack says, I'm sorry about your boys, Damo. He probably doesn't mean it. He's a Brizzy man. Remember this. Really thought
Yeah.
he'd was 400 if I thought they'd go very hard at the Pies. Might jump off for a bit, Legends, but we'll try to come back soon. Jamar just
Thanks for
saying
joining
hello.
us, man.
No worries. Wowie. Corey, problem is the first four buys. Yeah, that was shit too. The buys at the start of
Oh yes. Fuck, forgot
round
about that. Yeah.
that was shit house.
So
Oh,
shit.
2450 is what I was discussing before for that. Ben
Yep.
says Elias. He reckons par's 255. That's too much for me. I don't reckon that's par. That's
I reckon the guess was spot on. So I ended up dropping in rank, and I
oh
thought I
yeah.
was going to drop around about 1500. So I've only
Yeah.
dropped 914 spots with a score of 2395. So I reckon around about 2450, 2475, maybe at a guess. I
Yeah.
reckon that's probably around about par, maybe pushing 2500, but I reckon it's going to be below 2500.
I only went up 465 spots. I'm ranked 8,323. I thought I would have
So what
came
did you score again?
2521.
Yeah, so I reckon, and it was what? You went up 400 spots, did you say?
Yeah, yeah, 400 spots. That
Yeah,
was it.
so I reckon it was around about between probably 250, sorry, 2450
Yeah.
and 2500, I reckon is probably the par. Somewhere in that little gap there.
I just cleared it. That's why I just went up. That's so annoying. I thought I would have come
It's so
hard.
shit.
My team value is 13.9 million. What's yours out of curiosity? Not that it matters too much, but
It's funny. I'm 13.9 as well. So mine's dropped over the past 3 weeks. It's actually dropped down to I can show you ever so quickly. So my top value was back in around 18, 14 million 137. Then it's dropped to 14,85,000, 14,22,000, and then this now 13,936. So it's dropped incrementally. I think it's due to like my primos just performing like shit,
yeah,
and just dropping in cash.
they all have their patches too. And this is what I was saying about Chad Warner about a couple months ago, just as in his purple patch. And people going, "Oh, do we go Chad Warner?" I'm like, just go the ones you already know. Like, go your Dunkleys, go your
Mm,
Neils, go for the guy that might be
yeah,
having a patch that's never really had it any other season. So people like to jump on players that haven't really shown the consistency since seasons on, but think they're going to stay nuts the whole entire season. But then all it does for
yeah,
opposite coaches is for that player to then be shut down because they're like, well, shit, he's in form. Let's go to him and tag
mm,
him and go for Warner. So that's one thing I haven't been going for is players that are hot during season that you never considered at the start of the season.
no,
But everyone's getting so good at Supercoach because all these podcasters too. So that's what makes it hard for the competition too. Is everyone get all this knowledge where you kind of unless you start a really unique side, you've all got the same side, like 80% the same side, don't you? Like,
exactly. And I found that last year as well. Like it was so hard to make up ground because like last year we had our forward lines were virtually identical. It was like what Dunkley, Butters, like all the like Cogs, all the big names. When like if you have a line that's the same like across the entire competition,
yeah,
that's like virtually a 30-year team that's like duplicated across the entire competition. So in order to make up ground, you obviously need like differentiation across like defense, midfield,
yeah,
rucks as well. But even last year, it was like set and forget, wasn't it? It was like Gorn and English, I think it was, or Marshall, one of those two, and it was like easy again, like another part of the field that everyone shared, which was the same. So there's a little bit of variation this year in the forward line, especially, but
Well, this about 2 months ago, I was like Cherry or Grundy, and I went Cherry. I thought he's going to go up. I thought at the start of the season, I was like, yeah, he's just finding his feet. Maybe he might have
mm,
really good hit out in the back end of the season. And I was like, oh shit, Grundy's got really good matchups coming for the back half. And I couldn't afford Grundy anyway. So I was like, why am I even considering this? Let's just jump on Cherry Train and get a pod for the end of the season. And I think the last 8 weeks of the season, I'm going to start next year grabbing pods more instead of grabbing players that are highly owned, like your Merits, etc. I think if I want a Will
yeah,
Day, I'll just pick Will Day. I won't pick the Merit that's 30% in sides, etc. I'll just go for pods, unless they're like a Bonds and stuff where you don't want to anti-pod big dogs, but you also don't want to grab the player like Rao, at round 8 who was owned by like 50% of the competition because you kind of like where you're going to make up ground. You need somewhere where you can grab a pod that can go, you know what, he might fall off at some point. But Gold Coast is so inconsistent when they're not playing at home. That's what we've found out this
yeah,
year. Like,
exactly right, yeah, and
yeah. So go on.
it's crazy, isn't it? Oh, I was just gonna say, like in terms of getting on those pod players, and like speaking to the point you made about Warner earlier,
Yeah.
I have done that in the past, like years ago. I'd gone for players like that that had like a down, or sort of upswing in form,
Yeah.
and it was like even though Warner last year, like we'd kind of he was spoken in the same conversation as Tom Green as a bit of a breakout,
Yeah.
and Warner never took the step forward, much like LDU as well because he got injuries and whatnot
Yeah.
this year, and it's like surely Warner's going to get a bit of a breakout, and then it ended up being Heaney because he was getting opportunity in the midfield, and then people were jumping on Warner, and I was like, in the past where I've jumped on guys that look as though they're taking a next step in season, they've come back to burn me. So I'm like, I'm not going to do it, and it worked out well. So it's one of those key learnings that kind of has kept me in good stead in this case anyway. But yeah, I mean, you look at Philippou, for example, who I think he scored well enough tonight. He scored around about 90 odd, and he's been killing it. And that's off the back of like change in role and stuff, probably primarily compared to just an upswing in form, where like Warner, as we know, has played through the midfield over the years.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, unless it's, I've just sort of worked out that if the forms come off the back of a difference in role, then I'll back them in. Using Keys as an example, like for Adelaide, there's a guy that's JP's his name. You'll probably get a kick out of me mentioning his name. Every year, apart from this year, he always puts on a bit of a wager with me, a monetary, like puts money on the line.
Yeah,
And he's like always confident. He's like, and he goes for pods. And I'm like, dude, you've got to like balance out your team with like, you know, the ones that are tried and tested, the big names like Bond, everyone else. Then you can fill around them with pods. But he just goes
yeah,
outright pods, and he
yeah,
never gets far. And I beat him every year, apart from I think one season he ended up beating me to his credit. But he was asking me, he's like, "Do I go for Keys?" And I'm like, "Have a look at like Keys' form. It's been good over the past 4 weeks, but I'm like, it's come off the back of Adelaide playing well. So it's
yeah,
contingent upon Adelaide playing well. And if Adelaide have a downturn in form, what's going to happen? Look at the previous like, you know, 14 weeks from the start of the season up until then, and he was scoring like shit. I'm like, he hasn't had a change in role. Where like if he was getting more mid time like he was in 2023, 2023, 2022, then he was scoring well. So I'm like, if it doesn't come off the back of a role, you can't trust him. Can't trust him. And he went for Keys, and I was like, dude, you could have gone for Flanders.
yeah. Oh, like, odds are only made to go grab them if they actually got the scoring history where they're actually going to outdo the mainstay players too, not just
Yeah,
be the same. Because if they have a streak and the player that's not antipoded has a good week, then you fuck because you've got 1% owned the guy that scored 60, and the rest of the competition just back an extra 40 points on you because you took the pod that's not really outscoring. He's just doing the same shit. So,
yeah. I think
pods,
as well, like it's one of those things in it where like with pods, I think I've learned as well that it's probably better to go for there's like the pods that are like, complete outsiders with like 1% ownership. But they're
yeah,
1% ownership for a reason half the time.
that's
Whereas I
right.
think you probably should still like look at pods that are still like biggish names, like as we said earlier, like Dunkley, um, go for second tier players. Rosie as well. A lot of people jumped on. Um, there's Brayshaw who's had an uptick in form as well. Like
Yeah,
there's guys that are still, big names, but they're pods, and go for those. At least it gives you a little bit of a safety net that you're not going for guys that are pods, like a Ben Keys.
yeah. Well, even like rookies wise, like I have a conversation with a lot of the subs on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. And Craze this week was like, oh, Dowling or Manor, Manor won't kick 2 goals every week. But I said I was thinking he's a smart player. He might actually kick 2 goals every week. He's in a good side. It's Geelong. I said I'd field Manor over Dowling this week, mate, because he's in a better side. So
Yeah,
sometimes I'd rather a half forward flank in a good side than a midfield role in a shit team if you're playing for
yeah, good point.
rookies. So for rookies, it won't be about for role for me. It'll be about where that ladder position, where that player is playing. Like if Mana's a half forward flank at Geelong, I'm picking him over Dowling the majority of the weeks. And Mana was a sliding doors moment. If I didn't pick him over Philippou, I would have had 2 or 3 donuts that Philippou wasn't playing for. But Mana's averaging 75 and scored me a 79. He was on 83 and got scaled down 4 points. But like I've had him in my side and he was that DPP player. If I didn't grab him, I would have had to play. I don't think I could even get Dowling in my forward line if I was to go Philippou. So I think next year too,
Yeah,
if I trades, I'm going to make sure my side's again flexible in that DPP sort of thing. Um, but
yeah,
that's one thing. When you got no trades, you got to have really good flexibility to cover these shitty players and hope that the rookie you brought in is a decent F7 that can play a role in your
yeah.
F6. So, but
Exactly right. Yeah, that's what I was hoping that Rankin was going to get mid forward status.
yeah,
And part of the reason why I targeted him, and then when he didn't get it, I was like, stuff it, I'll get him anyway. But I would have provided so much flexibility, even though he ended up getting obviously rubbed out for 4 weeks, which has kind of killed me. But it would have allowed me to swing Dowling into the forward line, which I haven't had a swing. Like the only swing I've had would have been with, starting players like Flanders, Zorko, Caldwell, Heaney. And I'm like, well, that defeats the purpose because I wanted to bring in Rankin to loop him on field with the likes of Kerno and Jackson, to more so like screen their scores on the bench. But it was one of those strategies which didn't pay off because it was just bad luck. The week I brought him in, he ended up bloody outing himself. But yeah, it is what it is.
that's a lot of the game too. Is just pure luck, really. Like I
Yeah,
control this shit. Like there's only so much you can do. The one thing I've noticed this year too is I haven't had to use emergency scores very much on that bench. I think that's a little bit overrated. Like I've always, oh shit, I should probably have an emergency in case it's a late out. But there's rarely that many late outs. If you look at your season
no,
and count how many laid outs you've had, you might cop maybe 1 or 2 donuts for the whole entire season off a laid out. Like normally you
Yeah,
got
it's
a player
true.
on a Sunday anyway that you can bring on as a rookie that's playing on a Sunday that can cover for that player, generally speaking.
It's true because the defense as well. Look at that as an example. I've got like Reed and Dawson, like Will Dawson from the Roos, who
Yeah,
probably won't play. Zach Reed's out for the year, and I've been
yeah,
rolling with that since like round 14 or something,
yeah,
um, which is a massive risk, but like it's served me well for 7 weeks.
yeah,
Whereas look at every other line, and I'm kind of worried. I'm like, oh, what if there's a late out? What if someone gets injured on field? That
yeah.
sort of thing. But again, I've been running with Rankin on my bench who hasn't been able to give me coverage anyway. So like, there's two lines there in the forward line and in defence that I've kind of been out to sea with anyway. But
So who are you benching this week if you got Rankin coming back in?
so looking at round 22, ideally it would be good to. So Adelaide play the last game of the round, which is good.
Yep.
Not that I probably want to bench Rankin anyway. It'd probably
Yeah,
be because I've got like Flanders, Zorko, Caldwell, Heaney. It probably comes down to my head-to-head matchups, like because that's
yeah,
kind of what I'm playing for now. But um, the I've got so Jackson plays the fourth game of round 22, so I'd
yeah.
probably bench Jackson. Um, Play the Cats. Carlton play the Hawks, but I'm tipping the Hawks will win anyway. But I don't think Kerno's going to have a stinker again. He may, but I think with Jackson, he's probably been performing just as bad as Charlie in recent weeks. So I'll probably bench Jackson and then put the emergency on him. If he scores well, what I'll probably do is take Kerno off field. So I reckon I'll alternate both of those key forwards and
Good idea.
play Rankin.
Yep.
Only thing is, looking at my team and looking at the fixture, I've
Yep.
been bloody done over here by the AFL because Richards would be my loop, who's playing the first game of the round against the Swans.
Oh, yeah.
So that won't work. So I think I'll just back in Rankin and just have to make a choice between Jackson and Kerno, and go from there.
This is the weirdest call. I need Fisher to come back this week for that way I can oip Fisher for a Jackson or a Curnow. Probably a Jackson if anything. I think Curnow will do all right against the Hawks as a matchup. I'm just not confident in Jackson against the Cats.
Yeah.
But how interesting this year has the ladder been? Like I was surprised. I haven't watched
Oh,
much footy this weekend because I was out with my friend. We went to Lawn today, up to Erskine Falls.
oh, nice.
That was beautiful down there. So I sort of escaped a bit of
Yeah.
footy. I kind of like don't watch too much when you run out of trades. I don't watch as much as what I do when I'm mid season or start of
Yep.
season.
No, I'm the same.
But I listen to it a lot on the radio on the way home and stuff. And I'm looking at the scores today. I couldn't believe there was 2 games on the Sunday separated just by a couple points, and Essendon that 1 point. Like what? And it just shaped the whole top 8 already. And
Yeah.
Essendon might sneak in.
I reckon that. I reckon Carlton will drop out. Essendon will go back in. Um, and I can't see anyone else falling out. Like in terms of like the Bulldogs, they're in ripping form. Isn't it
Yep.
amazing? I was having a look as well before. The teams that have actually come good at this time of year were the teams that started shit. So the
Yeah,
Lions had like a 0-5 start. Port Adelaide, they had a downturn in form. People were asking for bloody Hinkley's head. The
yeah,
Giants had a downturn in form as well.
yep.
The Cats had a bit of a rough patch, not so much the early part of the season. Um, and Western Bulldogs, they started like shit. People were calling for Bevo's head. So there's
Literally.
like so many teams in the top 8 at the moment that started shit, have come good, compared
Yep.
to those teams like Carlton who started well. The Swans are in a different. I don't know what's happening. This is probably similar to Carlton, but just absolutely fallen away. Hawthorn started shit as another team as well. 0-5 start came good. So it's incredible. And there's only one game separating third from eighth.
How
One
crazy.
game. So that's like, yeah, crazy stuff, isn't it?
And then
And then
anywhere.
like to separate sixth to eighth is half a game.
So the only team that could scrape in is really from well, really 12 onwards.
Yeah, so there's
Like
three rounds
Melbourne
to go. Is that right?
doesn't happen. Yeah, 3 rounds to
Yeah,
go.
Melbourne are cooked, I reckon. Um, I think because the Hawks and the Pies are a game out, So they virtually need to win 2 of the next 3, you'd imagine.
Yeah.
Essendon are helped by the fact they've got a draw. So they're half a game ahead of the Hawks and the Pies. The Hawks definitely have to. If Hawthorn beat Carlton this weekend, I reckon
Oh,
Carlton are cooked. They're done.
yeah.
Which is
No,
what I think will happen.
you reckon? I reckon Carlton
Yeah,
win.
100%. Nah, not the way we're playing. They've lost it. Absolutely lost it. And the Hawks are riding high. I always thought the Hawks with their youngsters, I thought they might hit a bit of a wall, which is kind of what happens. Like you ride the momentum and then it just falls away. Like Essendon had that a season or two ago where they finished in the top 8 and then they just it was like in Rutten's like year before he got cooked and yeah,
Yeah.
and they're
It'd be
gone.
hard to support, I'll tell you that much.
I'm feeling what it's like as a Carlton supporter, just as bad at the moment.
Oh fuck. That would be there would be an uproar up in Melbourne, that's for sure. Yeah,
What's
it
that?
was going to be a Carlton Sydney grand final, and now I just don't even think either of those teams. I think it's going to be a Brisbane and Footscray grand final now.
Yeah, 100%. I reckon Brisbane, like especially considering the Lions made the grand final last year, I reckon they're pretty stiff. I reckon
Yeah,
they a couple of moments there. It always is like in grand finals that are close, but they, in their own right, probably deserve to win just as much as what the Pies. Like the Pies had a downturn in form. I think they lost like 3 of the last 4 games in the home and away season, scraped in, and then they ended up winning it. So they had a fair bit of luck go their way, which is what you kind of need as well as a bit of talent, obviously. But yeah, the Lions, I reckon, they're my tip for the flag. Even when they started slow, I was like, don't like write them off. They've got a really good list. They had quite a few injuries, like key injuries and stuff, but they've done well to come back from that. So if they get a home final, top 2, I can see them 100% going all the way.
I think they will too. The only thing is if they play Victorian side in the at the MCG, that's their only scare. So like if they play doggies at the MCG, I'm probably ticking the doggies.
Yeah, it's true.
That's
Like
what
the Dogs have a pretty good list as well, don't they?
yeah, they do. It's amazing that McRae and Sanders and players like that can't even get in, and then Caleb Daniels sub. Like I don't get it.
Yeah,
Like
it's incredible.
surely those players have value, trade value though. Surely not Sanders, but
It's
he won't go.
McRae and Daniel. Yeah, it's funny that they actually re-signed long-term deals only like 2 years ago. So I
Yeah,
think McRae was like 3 or 4 years, and Daniels was like 3 years.
yeah.
Or Daniel, sorry, like 3 years. So they've got like an extra couple of years left in their contract. Um, so it's like I think if they offer him to another team, they'll get like peanuts for him. But they might as well get rid of him. Like if not playing him,
Nah, they might even be delisted free agents by the end of the season.
yeah, that's true. Just not needed at all. Cut him
Well,
free.
well, if you win the flag and you don't even use those 2 players, it would not surprise me. It'd be the most Bevo thing to do too.
Wouldn't it?
Basically, yeah.
100%.
I don't know. The guy's a genius and a madman at the same time. I don't know.
Isn't he? Yeah, I don't know what he's like as a coach. I think, yeah, he seems like a bit of an interesting character, that's for sure.
I feel like a lot of them would annoy me playing for him. That's for sure.
What's
Like I
that?
couldn't, I couldn't stand being under Chris Scott. He'd shit me.
Oh, yeah, he would. Yeah, yep, 100%.
I seen him at Belmont
Um,
in Geelong a few years ago, and he's the biggest snob you'd ever see.
oh, really?
Yeah, just nose up, had his earphones in, like everyone was going to talk to him. No one would talk to that prick, but in Geelong they probably would. But like,
Yeah.
I'd really want to just punch him in the face as soon as I walk past him. I'm like, that's Chris. He's a fucking Geelong. Oh my god.
And knowing your luck, though, you'll punch him in the face and find out that it's Brad Scott and not Chris Scott.
Oh,
Given they're twins.
well, I only knew because he had the beard out, whereas Brad doesn't really have a beard out.
Oh, he's clean shaven. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a bit of a metrosexual, they call them. He's swept over hair. He's got the kept beard and everything else. Like, come on, mate, get off it.
Yeah, you can tell he probably kisses the mirror every night before bed.
100%. We see there's a few people in the chats sending through some messages, Brad, as well. If you wanted to go through those before they pile up.
Yep, I haven't answered any of them, have I? Corey says anti-potted Dempsey, Sharp, Vaughan, Strong, early killed his team for sure. That will do it, won't it? Especially players like that, they're going to make a lot of cash, Jen. Jack, I generally believe Lions could finish in front of the Swans. So do I.
Yep.
You got that, of course. And then Corey says, my regrets is starting Cam McKenzie over Dempsey as a pod. Went Martin when I had Strong all preseason. Fuck. And then started Whitfield over Sheasel, Stanberry over McKershaw. At least these guys know their mistakes. Sometimes I just don't.
Yeah.
Hey, lads. G'day, mate.
G'day.
That's my kryptonite saying JG. I always got to think about it because those letters just sound like weird to me in my head.
JGSC.
Corey, weekly winner scored. Is that all? I thought it would have been
that's still a pretty big score, though.
Yeah, maybe because of Mate, I can't even say, if this player was on the field, I could have outscored it. You guys, JG's gone finally in the top 1,000. Nice for the first time in the
well done, man. It's cool.
Corey went up from 2-3 up to 32,000. Oh wow! So he dropped out. That's a huge fall. 32,000. And it says Jake Waterman was a drop. Yeah, he had a really hot start. Did you see that early on the season?
Yeah,
Waterman?
he did. Yeah.
And then he's dropped off for whatever reason. No idea why. Child was a pod, sorry.
Yeah, he was a great pod.
And he finally got his body right too. Like, who would have thought, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
This was about the manner in our Twitter chat, manner over Dowling. And then Jack says, hope your Blues bounce back. Legend, I hope this sickness I've had for almost 10 days can piss off.
No.
Got it back from my missus. Oh, no. I should have put the missus in the doghouse and then you slept on the bed. You can sleep on the couch, mate. Don't you be asleep on spend the weekend, but yeah, I feel that. It feels like I've had COVID. I hate COVID, mate. I've had that once and that cooked me for a week, I reckon.
Yeah, I've luckily only had it once. Wife's had it a couple of times and I dodged it somehow the second time around. So
yeah. Well,
killer.
You must have put chicken coop or something, did you, back there?
Yeah. I actually slept in the spare room, but she was already showing like symptoms. So I was like, surely I've got it. And then I just dodged it somehow. So fucking amazing.
Wow. There you go. I actually saw you for a quick squiz. I think I might have been working. Your pod with the misso. I didn't realise you had a Blue Baggers channel. So I'm gonna have to.
Yeah.
Are you doing like team reviews on that? What are you doing on that?
Yeah, so doing I only just started up around about 4 or 5 weeks ago maybe. So up to like 60 subs now, which isn't too bad. I mean, just doing reviews and previews at the moment and stuff. And I'm similar to Supercoach. Like I love my numbers and stats and data and stuff. So I go into like the game plan structure, things we need to improve upon, like how we concede the most points to stoppages and how that's a part of the game we need to work on. And I've done like a little bit of a write up for the review, which I'll record probably tonight or tomorrow for the Pies game, and use the data to go through what went wrong and lack of structure and everything else. Like it's one of those things you kind of watching the game, you see how the team structures up and the game plan, the transition out of defense and everything, and like it's been the same. It's been a massive issue coaching wise for the club. So another issue again on the weekend against the Pies, but yeah, go through the ins and outs and do a few lives as well with which is what you would have seen that episode that I did with Mrs. Because she's a massive hardcore bagger as well. So and she was nagging me to get on, so I was like, yeah, all right, we'll get on. Bit of fun.
I don't think I think I had one missus who was kind of into footy back in the day. I don't think I could do a podcast because I think it just wouldn't go well. She's not very knowledgeable on footy, so I'd be looking at saying that some player, and it could be like a player that's fucking retired that should name, and I'd be like, what is going on?
Yeah, what the hell? No, she's a smart girl, Mo, and she knows the ins and outs of footy. I always take the mick out of her, like at the start of every year, where like if we've got a new player making their debut, or like she's not across the trade period, so she's like, oh, where did this player come from? And I'm like, where have you been? Where have you been? It's like Elijah Hollins, for example. She's like, who's that? Who's Elijah Hollins? Is that the brother of Ollie? Where's he come from? Did we draft him? I'm like, he came from Gold Coast.
Yeah,
Where have you been? But she's really good and like
that's good.
very analytical and stuff as well. Like I threw her a couple of times where I was asking about matchups, and I remember
Yeah,
afterwards she's like, "Why'd you ask me that question?" I was like, "I don't know, just to see if you had anything to add to it." But I could tell she didn't, so I like jumped in.
yeah.
So I just threw her completely.
It'd be funny if I don't think my dad would ever agree to going on a podcast, but he brings in players where you're like, what the fuck? He rang in Ryan Mansell one week just off the back of like a 120, and it was this year, and I was like, why are you bringing Ryan Mansell in? Like, yeah, he'll come good. I looked at his side at the end of the season, and it's actually been okay because he's picked players that have like had this form patch and they've actually kind of maintained it. And his side's
Oh,
almost
so he's got lucky.
and he's just gotten pure lucky, but he's the kind of bloke that always finished 150,000 out of 180,000. I'm like, why are you still? He's like, I just like
It's
playing, I don't know.
it's funny you mentioned like he's gone for like was it Mansell, was it from the Tigs?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my stepdad, he's big into Supercoach as well, and he's always sending me text messages like, "Oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of that?" He sent through a screenshot of his team in his head-to-head league, ended up winning it, and he's got Seth Campbell in his team.
Oh my God.
Seth Campbell,
Right, yeah.
like
Sorry.
what? It was crazy.
Well,
Like his team's pretty good, but he's got like Seth Campbell. He's got Raul, who he kept hold of. D'Ambrosio, who he's kept for like the entire year, who finally came good. He's got Rolly Garcia in his starting team. Sean Manor. He's got Bailey Humphrey from Gold Coast. Scored a 38. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I give him direction, and he's like, oh yeah, what about this guy? And I'm like, it's your team. You do what you like. Like,
here's
but he's done all right.
My dad's got an okay team. He's got Sheasel, Dacos, McGovern, Luke Ryan, Dan Houston. This is the fucking players I'm talking about. Darcy Moore is his day 6.
Oh no.
Then he's got his midfield's fine. I'm actually surprised right now. Zach Butters, Sarong, Merritt, Steele, Green, Laird. He's still got Took Miller playing on field. He's on hold.
He's out. He's been out for the past 3 weeks.
He's over in Canada, I think. So I think he's just thrown in the towel. He's got Sherry and English in the ruck. He's still got Rankin off. Heaney, Kerno, Liam Baker up forward. He probably grabbed him round 1. Joel Jeffrey. I don't know why the hell he got Joel Jeffrey. Logan Evans, Jai Clark, Revel, Naismith, Richards. So the weird ones are just every now and then, but I thought he had a weirder side than that. But who the hell is Joel Jeffrey? I know who Joel Jeffries is, but who the hell puts them in a side? That's more draft-based.
Yeah.
Playing Darcy Moore at D6 is wild too, but normally he has more crazy than that. Normally I'm naming about 12 players that you'd think this is a draft league. So maybe he's been watching my videos. The other day I said to him, I said, "Oh, you've been watching mine?" He's like, "Oh," because he's a little bit semi-retired and he's been watching other people's, but he won't tell me whose channels he's been watching. So I said, "Oh, you better ranking if you actually watch my reviews, Dad."
Yeah.
He's like, on the phone, I already know what you're gonna do.
And of course, he probably wants to do something different because he doesn't want to like copy your team or like he probably wants to one up you and be like, no, like I can manage my team. I can outdo you by bringing guys like Darcy Moore.
Yeah, Joel Jeffries.
Yeah, John Jeffries. Who?
I'm disappointed he didn't keep Mansell. I was hoping he was still in that side to just put his name out there, but he's not.
That's hilarious.
It's so good.
Jack said he's stepping out for he's getting some sunlight with his lady after looking like a ghost all weekend.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I end up watching just.
What a good man.
I've been watching Suits on Netflix lately. Flanders is the main reason. Yeah, okay. Flanders is a donut. I didn't get that. Do you know what that means, Damo?
Flanders is the only main one that people got. I have no idea what you mean there, Corey.
I'm not sure. G'day, lads. Global. What's going on? Oh, did you end up watching the goal kicking video in the end for Shorty Supercoach?
No, I couldn't find it.
Oh,
what do I search?
I'll send you a link. I don't know.
Yeah, send me a link.
I'll send you a link tonight on the Twitter inbox. Global got 2,600. I can't even speak English now. What would happen if the Blues miss finals? Yeah, what would you do, Damo?
I would be stress free. That would probably be it, and I'd be fuming with my team, like I already am already.
You can go to the Spurs, go up to the snow. It's probably too late
Yeah,
to
yeah,
start.
it's true. No, well, like because we've booked our trip to Bali in
Yeah.
Seminyak in on the 14th of August. So we did that deliberately so we'd come back in time for like the last game against St Kilda,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
like leading into finals.
Yeah.
So finals probably won't even exist this year. So we're like, oh, we probably could have like held off and taken the holiday after then. But anyway, yeah, it ties in with our anniversary. So
Oh,
yeah, it's a bit of extra reason.
yeah, nah, fair. Well, I've been waiting for the round 24 fixture to come out because I said to some of the subs on here and whatnot that I'm going to go to like, the Saturday afternoon game and meet some
Oh
of them
yeah.
out. So I'll put an invite into the lads on our chat on Twitter and whatever and see who wants to come to the last game of the round. I don't know which game though because they haven't announced the bloody time slots. Um, and
The
then
only one
drink.
that I've heard of is St Kilda and Carlton. I think is going to be on Saturday. That's what I've
Yeah,
heard from Intel within the because I did some filming at Carlton on Monday.
yeah,
Interviewed like all the big dogs, Vossi and a few other assistant coaches, Ash Hansen and Brad Lloyd and everyone, and chatting to one of the people that work in admin. They were like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure that like it looks as though we're going to play St Kilda on Saturday." So I was like, "Okay, it might work well." Because I think we actually fly back in Saturday morning back from Bali, so we'll go straight to the game after that. Be cooked.
yeah. That'd be awesome. Just you'd be feeling it though. Is Bali like a long flight or not?
It's not too bad. I think it's around about 6 or 7 hours. So yeah, it's only just. I think it's like 5 hours to Perth, so a little bit longer than that. So yeah,
Is it
that's
5
easy
hours?
compared to like yeah, around about yeah,
Yeah, yeah, right.
yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it would have been 2 hours.
Oh no, it's a couple of bit of bit of extra.
Yeah, fair
Look
enough.
at Jackie's gone.
He's there. I think we're probably going to call it night. I know we've got things to do and whatnot, but I do appreciate you jumping
Yeah,
on.
no.
Sorry the sake of the internet was cooked. So
Oh no, don't be silly. All good, man. Just great to catch up finally for the first time, and hopefully I haven't edged you too much, Brad, as well, because I am conscious of that.
I won't stand up. That's have you.
I got your I got your I got your primed for your next Tinder date at least. So
Oh, those are stories. We're not on live. Yeah. Off and I was almost late for this potty as it was. I was like, yeah, you want to go home now because we're going to do a live in about an hour. Not sure didn't have
it's
my
priorities in order.
literally, so I had to drive it back, and I was like, oh, I can't remember. But yeah, what do you do?
That's too good. Big Kev has said thanks, boys.
No worries, Kev. He was the one that was saying you could hear us early on in that one that I couldn't hear you. Like I was saying before, I could hear like every fourth word. I'm glitching out. I'm like, oh my god,
Oh, it was to you.
we got there in the end. So thanks for jumping on again, and I'll catch you another time for sure soon.
No stress. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Anytime you want to have a chin wag, you need someone on, feel free to reach out. I'll always be keen to jump on.
Sounds good, Damo. Thanks for coming.
Easy, no worries. Thank you, lads. Catch you
So,
later.
oh, did that end there complete?